record. I'm really happy that Sal DeRosalia joins us today. He is a longtime Bainbridge Island resident, and I want to ask him a little bit about his life as a serial entrepreneur, as a social justice warrior, and as the co-host and co-creator of a program called Wake Up Bainbridge, which if you have not watched it, you should and can. So Sal, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about what it's like to be somebody under 50, under 60 living on Bainbridge Island? Because we think we have we think we have run of the place.
Absolutely. Well, I will tell you that you do have run of the place, so I can confirm that. I've lived here for 20 years. I moved here in March of 2000. And the other fun fact is that I have been under 50 and 60 the entire time I've been here. So yeah, you said that before, and it really kind of hit home because I've never thought of it like that. But I did spend, I mean, I've spent my 20s, my 30s, and now my 40s living on Bainbridge Island proper, working on Bainbridge Island proper. I have worked off island. I went into the city and got a job there once and worked a little bit there. I've lived in Indianola for about 2 months. That didn't pan out, and I've lived on the island for almost exclusively the entire rest of the time. And it's been interesting being a 20 and 30-year-old and now 40-year-old living on the island. But I can tell you that I wouldn't trade my experience for the world. I'm glad I'm here, and I don't want to leave. So I would like to go other places, but I don't want to leave Bainbridge. I can tell you that.
And what is it about this community that makes you feel like this is where you want to stay, and ideally, make enough money to keep going?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it is the greatest love affair I've ever had in my life. And sometimes it's really good and sometimes it's not good at all. But at the same time, I really feel I've spent my entire adult career here, my entire adult life. I'm very invested in, people, human beings here, in different organizations. I have a long history. I mean, I was a volunteer firefighter at EMT on the island from 2003 to 2010. And so most people who know me now have no idea that I have that experience. And I sat on a long range planning committee when I did that. And I was a cadet, and I lived there. And so there's just so many parts of Bainbridge that I love that are literally just a part of me that I don't want to trade them for something else. And I really believe that the work that I can do, whether it's in my career or whether it's in social justice, that I am best suited to do that work here because I've spent the last 20 years here.
So what other ways, in addition to being a volunteer firefighter, have you engaged with the community or been an entrepreneur here?
So when I moved here in 2000, and I worked for a small business on the island that's actually still open. It's called Pinnacle Roofing, and I know the man Brad. He's a good friend of mine, and so congratulations, Brad, on having a business open for almost 20 years on Bainbridge Island. And so I started there, and I kind of learned how to do some management stuff. I learned how to do office management stuff. I just want to tell everybody off the bat, I have gone to school, but I don't have any traditional degrees or certificates or anything like that. Almost everything I've done has been self-taught, for better and worse. And so what I've done is tried to parlay each thing I've done into the next thing. So very early on here, I opened up something called Bainbridge Computer Center, and it used to be where BEMA is right now. So where BEMA was actually the thrift shop and Laurel Ann's little coffee shop that served ice cream, and the Chamber of Commerce actually used to be there. So my first brick and mortar business was in 2002 or 3 on that corner there on Winslow. For about 2 or 3 years, I had that business there. And then I ended up just taking it inside of my house and working remotely. But that's like my start there. I've done IT and computer stuff for a while. I've done website stuff. We kind of live in that area, but early on I teamed up with somebody who was very heavy into tech and very heavy into coding, but they were not very heavy into wanting to interact with human beings on a regular basis. So I was kind of the front man for that company. And that's also where I learned a lot of the technological stuff that I know that I've been able to kind of carry forward.
This is an interesting island because although it has, I think, a self-image of being a welcoming and inclusive place. Also, when you look at the sort of the demographics, it's pretty wealthy and pretty white.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of, we've talked in a group that we have here at the Senior Center called the Inclusion Study Group about the bubble of Bainbridge and how it's possible to think of yourself as socially just without
Mhm.
a lot of call on you to respond to those social justice needs. Uh, have you, as a younger person of color living on the island, experienced that bubble from the outside, if you will?
Sure. So I'll be perfectly honest, and I'll tell you if I've experienced it from the outside, but I've also experienced it from the inside. For many years here, I was somebody who knew technically that I was a person of color, but could very much pass for being a regular Caucasian male. And to say that I did not take advantage of that would just be disingenuous. I did. I don't know that I actively used to think I'm taking advantage of this, but I certainly didn't push away any privilege that anybody gave me because my skin color was not darker than what it was. And I say that because I have one very brown parent and one very white parent, and my brown parent has another son, my half brother, who is very dark skinned, and so I grew up in New York where I was born and raised, but I had two very different lives. Like one was very Caucasian and middle class, and one was very lower class. I wouldn't even say lower middle class. We were poor. My mother was on social services, and so when I came here, I kind of had this mixture of being able to exist in both worlds, and I think that it was much easier for me to defer to being inside the bubble, and that's why I don't want to just come out here and say I'm the social justice warrior, and it's always been that I'm on the outside. I very much was able to get some privilege by being on the inside for a while. What I realized after a while was that I could only get so far, and I believe that there's just, kind of like a class system, and there's kind of a system based on race. And I was not very in tune to what it was. I know that you guys have had like Brenda on the show, Brenda Johnson, and she's part of the Race Equity Task Force. And I know that you know Karen Vargas and maybe Chastity Maltesta. These are people that I do some equity work with. And it's through my relationships with them over the last 3 or 4 years. And I've known Karen since 2004. But really over the last 3 or 4 years that I've really kind of dove into this work. And also because it started to really show up in my life about 3 or 4 years ago. And I don't know if anybody wants to draw a correlation. It just really started to show up that I was different. It really started to show up that I was not fully accepted here. And so the way I've defined it is you don't have to be any particular thing. You just have to not be white. And if you're not white, you're just different. And I really believe that we occur differently to most people here. And so what I would love to do is just make us more normal, or make that we are all here together and that we interact together and that we can benefit from each other in our cultures and our life experiences. I just want to make that more normal. And my hope is through that, we get to kind of erase away some of that bubble inside the bubble stuff. But it's tough. It's tough to shed the bubble. It's tough to know you're in the bubble. I think that this is a progressive place in some ways, but I think that it's very conveniently progressive. It's very convenient for people to say that they're progressive here because they don't have to exercise that progressiveness. And lately we've had to exercise it. We've gone out and protested, or we've had to kind of choose a side, whether we're talking about Black Lives Matter or even things like Me Too. And we're really starting to have to pick sides of what's right and what's not right. And so I think we're just starting to see, I think, good stuff happen out of bad situations.
Yeah, it sounds to me like Wake Up Bainbridge was also Wake Up Sal at one point in your
You
life.
got it. That is good. That is completely correct. That was Wake Up Bainbridge was certainly born out of. It was an acute problem that I had. I felt like I had been wronged in a certain way on Bainbridge Island, and I started to pursue avenues of fixing that wrong. And what I can tell you is very early. That's what got me to City Hall. That's what got me to pay attention to all that stuff. And when I got there, what I realized is almost everything they talked about concerned me, even though I thought it didn't. And then just knowing my friends, knowing all the different kinds of people I knew. I had owned a gym. I was in the process of still owning a gym for the last 10 years. I just got to see all different types of people come through my gym. And it just became really clear to me that most of what went on in City Hall affected everybody I saw come through my gym, but that we had little to no information about it, and also like little to no interest. So when I kind of put my problem to the side, and not to say that it still doesn't drive me and I still don't want to correct it, but my acute issue is not the issue. The fact that I want people to have more information about what goes on at the city level so that they can help make better decisions for themselves is what I believe the real issue. And that's kind of what Wake Up Bainbridge got born out of.
Yeah, I do remember that one of the things you said when we were at City Hall marching after the George Floyd murder was your say that this is where it begins. This is not this march is not where it ends. This is where it begins. And your experience of working with City Hall is where we actually can make a difference. So it sounds like you've had a couple. You're on the Race Equity Task Force. You've had some other contacts with the city, right?
I am not on the Race Equity Task Force. I was one of the people that kind of helped get the Race Equity Task Force formulated. Like when Brenda kind of gave her talk, she just talked about the genesis of the groups that were working to get the Race Equity Task Force formed at the city level. I'm not a member, but I certainly, like I literally just sent Brenda and James Friday, who's the president of the task force, an email this morning asking if they would kind of give an update on our show on Wake Up Bainbridge. So I try to be as involved as I can, but I'm not one of the members of the task force.
But when you look at things that might be that might go through City Hall, what kinds of things come to mind to you, just as examples of the ways that we can show up as citizens to sort of change the tenor and move from platitudes about inclusion to actions about engagement and inclusion?
Sure. I mean, I think that one of the things, and I think this just happens to dovetail nicely into certainly an issue that concerns people, senior citizens, is affordable housing. I think there are certainly people of color who can afford to live here and at the purchase price, at the retail price that Bainbridge Island offers. I just think they're few and far in between. And so I think if we want to not just say that we're about wanting diversity and inclusion, but we actually want that to be what our island is, that we need to make it a habitable place for people. And so one of the ways to do that would be, like, I know that my mother would love to live near me, for maybe the last 10 years of her life, but she's literally on Section 8. And so she has to go certain places because she can't afford to live other places. So I have two options. I can try to make Wake Up Bainbridge the best thing in the world and become rich and get her to move here. Or I have to try to find solutions that somebody like her can move to a place like this. And so that's like a personal story, but I can tell you that I know many people like that. And so if we could work on affordable housing, I think that would be something. And to do that, what I think needs to happen is I think that we need to really, truly peer pressure city council. We need to really, truly peer pressure the city manager, and we need to. It needs to not be a wave, because all the protests have stopped, and I can tell you that there's some action at City Hall in regards to the task force and getting the training that we've been talking about for 2 years for the people at City Hall, but there's no requirement, and so there's no real teeth to a lot of the things that are going on here. They're just people being willing, or the city being willing to do some things. What I think we need the Race Equity Task Force to be a standing committee, not a task force that goes away. We need something that will have teeth forever, not something that somebody can pull away when they don't think it's convenient anymore. And I'm not saying that City Hall is bad or anything like that, but City Hall is made up of a bunch of individuals, and those people change all the time. And so, I think that by having a standing committee inside the task force, people might be more likely to want to be involved in it or pay attention to it. And then you'd get more people paying attention to the planning commission or paying attention to like every other committee and commission and task force inside of City Hall that doesn't have somebody looking at it, and I'm going to use air quotes, with an equity lens. We have almost nobody, and certainly nobody qualified to be looking at these issues with an equity lens and saying, City of Bainbridge Island, here's how you can actually take action and develop equity in this area. And so whether that's code in the Planning Commission, or I don't know, stuff within the police department, because the City of Bainbridge Island dictates policy at the police department. There's a lot of ways to do it. And so I just hope that we really, I want us to take this as serious as we take some of the other issues I've seen here. Like we got a bag ban passed. Like we literally outlawed balloons here. And I know this sounds silly, but I want us to take like race equity that seriously. I want to see things show up that you can't take back. And so to me, that's how the city, or the people who are listening, or who might interact with the city, can help push that forward.
So one of the things you mentioned was the vehicle that you use to kind of explore these issues is your show with Richard Davis, Wake Up Bainbridge. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the genesis of that and how it's running now, and sort of what your goals are for that and how people can tune in?
Absolutely. So Richard Davis and I developed Wake Up Bainbridge kind of out of just an idea. I had been kind of working around with podcast stuff and pointing to the technology around me, because I had an idea in my brain that I wanted to start to get into marketing or advertising or something like that. I had worked with Richard before, probably about 15 years before that. We had done a few different business deals, but he's kind of an entrepreneur too. So when him and I got back together and we were just talking on a regular basis again, I told him what my idea was. And I took him to the barn and I said, hey, like, let's just sit down here and hit record on this thing and see what happens. And so I set up a video camera to record us. And then we recorded the audio through the stuff at the barn, through the equipment at the barn. And that was literally how the show was born. So I think we opened a newspaper, or we took a city document and we just started talking about it. And then we kind of liked it. So we decided to like kind of collect, almost like collect the issues around us and curate them into, we want to be funny, but we certainly want to be real all the time. But I don't think that it has to be doom and gloom when we're reporting the news. It's sort of, I think a lot of Bainbridge, Wake Up Bainbridge there's some eye roll going on with what we're reporting. And I think the eye roll is that we have to report this stuff. It's like, okay, here we go. We're going to report this. But to be honest, what I want Wake Up Bainbridge to be is where people literally tune in to get real news. I want them to tune in to get real stories, not anecdotal stuff, not I heard. I would love for there to be citizen journalists that either get paid or work for free or whatever it is, however it ends up being set up, that can contribute to this on a regular basis. I have no interest in like kind of starting an empire and owning it. What I have an interest in doing is like starting things up, finding people who will fit in them and who I can work with, and including them so that we can kind of all share in it. And that's literally what Richard has done with me. He's a lot of my yin and yang. I can tell you that I purposefully chose him, one, because we got along and we had some dialogue. He spent some time where I grew up, so he understood that. But he's an older white man, and I picked that on purpose. My hope was that if people wouldn't listen to me, that they might listen to Richard. And by listening to the both of us, they'd pick up some of what we were trying to say. And so that was very intentional. And I think it's worked. I think that I think we do a good job. My hope for us is that we just really like dial it in so that we can put a super professional product out for Bainbridge Island and Kitsap County, because I think that Bainbridge Island and Kitsap County really deserves that. So it's just hard when you're doing it for free, which is what we've been doing for almost 2 years.
Yeah, it's it's not the most lucrative field right now, that's for sure, but it's really important. Yeah. And I'm guessing that you're getting a fair amount of viewership and engagement as well, which is great. Mm-hmm. Are there some particular topics or issues that you and Richard have dealt with that you're particularly proud of tackling?
Yeah. So I'm proud of how we covered the city council election. I want to say we did almost 40 interviews of city council people, or doing kind of, I don't want to say face off, but it's debates or things like that. And so I just think it was really important to find out who the candidates were and what they were going to do. So that's something I'm really proud of. The other things I'm really proud of are that I've been able to, or that we've been able to kind of parlay Wake Up Bainbridge into helping amplify messages that I really believe deserve amplification. So Black Lives Matter, racial justice, teen sexual assault. There was a young lady, Sophie Coleman, who did a 3-part interview, and she just did a kind of an update with us yesterday. She told me this in part, some of this happens, there is leverage for some people because they use media to help move their very real issue forward. And so, I don't like when people use media to exploit things or shout out misrepresentations. And I really, don't do that. And if I ever do, I hope that somebody catches me and tells me, and I hope they make me apologize, because I want people to fact check us. I want the legitimacy that comes with being held responsible for it. So, but yeah, those type of topics I think are really important. And I think that just going forward, that a vehicle like Wake Up Bainbridge, where you can either listen to it or you can watch it online, like in real time, we are current, whereas lots of other publications or places are at least a day or two old. And so I think it's really important that people get things in real time for Bainbridge Island. I think there's enough going on here that matters.
So if people are interested in catching up with you, you can subscribe. You can go to Facebook, right? There's you have a website. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can always if you just go to Google or any search string or any browser or any phone or anything, and you type in Wake Up Bainbridge, I'm pretty sure you're going to find something that leads back to us. And that's the thing I'm also very proud of. But what you can do is you can go to wakeupbainbridge.com on any of your podcasts or wherever you might audio listen to it. You can type in Wake Up Bainbridge and subscribe to the podcast there. We usually will have an episode and then put the episode out a little bit later on the podcast. And then you can also we are on Facebook, but we are not private. So when people say, hey, I'm not on Facebook, I can't see you, that's actually not completely accurate. You can watch us on Facebook. You might not like to, but it's an open page and you can just watch the video. It's live. We hope to do something which allows us to restream it somewhere else, like a YouTube. But really, we want to stay online. Maybe someday we get kind of repurposed through a Comcast or a local broadcast station. That would be cool. But for the meantime, if you just go into your Google or your search engine and you type in Wake Up Bainbridge, you can't not bump into Richard and I. And kind of just walking around Winslow or Bainbridge Island, you can't not bump into Richard or I.
Yeah, and if you are interested in bumping into Sal right now, just open up your microphone and pop a question and join in the conversation. Richard Herzog asked about what's the best way to contact you. He asked for your details on the best way. If you have an idea for a show, or if you just want to begin to get to know Sal.
Sure. Sal@wakeupbainbridge.com. That is my email address. The other thing to note is I used to own a gym for 10 years and I just closed that gym during COVID times. It became very difficult to own a gym where my rent was about $10,000 a month. And I just couldn't really bear that cost anymore. So I closed it down. But now, and I really mean it when I say it, my full-time job is Wake Up Bainbridge. My full-time job is Bainbridge Online Broadcasting, which is kind of what is going to be the distribution of other shows, hopefully, in Wake Up Bainbridge. But I'm fully committed to Bainbridge. This is a printout of part of the comprehensive plan. That's how I spend my days. It's very interesting, but I really enjoy it. So I get a kick out of it. But yes, Sal at Wake Up Bainbridge, or if you just go onto Facebook, you can friend me, message me. If I don't message you back, it's because I didn't see it. But yeah, there you go.
Just try it again. Cool. So it sounds like the program is growing, and like you and Richard are having a good time doing it, and you're providing a great service. It looks like maybe there are some people on this call who have taken advantage of an episode or two. I know I have enjoyed it. You guys do have a great chemistry.
Thank you.
I think that makes it really easy to listen to. And obviously, you've been having some interesting guests with interesting points of view about
Mhm.
issues that we may not have brought before us, like the sexual assault challenges that you were just talking about with Sophie.
Mhm.
And I think that's important. I think that it's great to have as many voices about what's going on here as possible. We had a conversation a couple of weeks ago with Dean Miller, who was a sort of a mainline journalist, worked for the Port Townsend News Leader and worked for the Seattle Times, and he was talking about how much trouble local journalism, old-fashioned paper and print journalism is, and I think that the kind of work that you and Richard are doing is going to be the future of a lot of local journalism. It's gonna the entry costs are low and the quality is what makes it fly or not. So
Yeah,
your
no,
hard
I
work.
completely agree. Yeah.
Um, so in your view about the island, do you think that there's been an awakening? Do you think that some of the activity that we saw around Black Lives Matter has sustainability, or are you a little worried that we're like going to come out the other end of this, like you said a minute ago, that the priorities might change a little bit?
Sure. I do think that we're awakened more than we were before, and I do think that there's a lot of opportunity. So I'll tell you just very frankly what I talk to and say to people in the groups that I work in groups with other people of color, is I am the person in the group who says it's our responsibility to make sure that people know where they can plug in. Meaning, if we have allies out there, if there are people who want to help us, and we don't get their help because we weren't ready to receive it, that's partly on the groups that need the help. I do see a lot of people who want to help. I just want to say that sometimes I think that some of the help dies off because the organizations aren't ready to receive the help. And so my hope is that the organizations who are doing this work, whether it's organizations with Karen Vargas or Chastity Maltesta or any other organizations that might be doing work around this stuff, is that they get to a place where they can actually take that ally, take that person who says, how can I help? I'm willing to help right now, whether it's money or my volunteer time or just learning, and be ready to give them that thing. And I guess I'm saying this to the people who are listening, like if you're an ally out there, put it on the person to say, hey, I want to help you. I need to ask you what you need for help. The one thing I'll say is sometimes help is delivered and it's delivered in a way that's not wanted or needed, but it's help. And so people think, well, I'm trying to help. But yeah, I do think that I do see a lot of hope, and I do see a lot of people that I had not seen before willing to engage on a level that I have not seen them willing to engage. And that's just very refreshing. To be perfectly honest, that's why I want to stay here. That's why I want to stay on Bainbridge, is because I think the job is doable. I think that we can literally be, like I'm choking up and it's corny, but I think that we could be like this beacon for how it can be done. Because honestly, like we have the means, the motive, and the opportunity. We just have to have the willingness. We have to have the willingness to like step into the work and get a little bit uncomfortable. But out of that, like we could have some of the most amazing things in the world. Like when I look at, and I'm just kind of talk about the senior center. Like when I think about what it would take to make something like totally amazing for senior citizens on this island to live, work, play, exist, it wouldn't take a lot. And Bainbridge Island could be like known for this. Yet we're like going to haggle about giving the senior center $300,000 or $500,000 for some updates. And I'm not trying to play to the crowd, but I just really feel like if we just leaned into this stuff and put some hard asks, I think that we could get a lot. I just think that we could get a lot done for a lot of people right now. So the answer is yes, Reed.
All right, yeah, and I think that that there are organizations that we as allies
Mhm.
can plug into, like Surge,
Mhm.
and Erase. Surge is showing up for racial justice,
Absolutely.
and the Erase group is here on Bainbridge and
Mhm.
on Kitsap County.
Mhm. Yeah, the Erase group actually has a meeting. I think it's this Thursday. They're having another meeting, but they meet. Yeah, these are great examples of how you can start to plug in. Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know. It sounds like the last question I was going to ask you, you just answered, which was about what you can, how the senior center plays into this. And I do think that there are things that we can do as a community to show up for racial justice, show up for um, equity, and some of them apply to us directly as individuals. Things like affordable housing, and some of them are things that we may not feel apply to us directly in the first iteration, but boy, they sure do in terms of building a community of of openness and mutual respect, which you were talking about at the top of the show.
Absolutely.
I really want to thank you. I am grateful for you taking the time, and I encourage we'll send out information and links to Wake Up Bainbridge on this podcast. But really great to spend a half hour with you, Sal.
Thank you very much. And thanks everybody for tuning in and listening. And it's seriously, if anybody has any questions, when I started Wake Up Bainbridge, I made a deal with myself, which is if somebody asks me a reasonable question, I'm going to give them the answer. So if anybody has any questions, they can always contact me on Facebook or Sal at Wake Up Bainbridge. If you want to contact Richard, he doesn't like this, but his email is Richard at Wake Up Bainbridge. So, I mean, seriously, go annoy him. And we actually have a lot of one of the things I'll just kind of end with this is one of the ways that we judge our successes in our engagement. And yes, we do that on Facebook so that we can sell against that someday, hopefully. But also because if we just put out a bunch of articles and people aren't interacting with them, or people aren't reaching out to us and talking to us about what we're talking about, nobody's interested. And I don't want to be that. I want to be something that is engaged with. And so we do get a lot of that, and we really appreciate that. So if you guys want to do that as well, and even if it's, hey, we think you should do this, please reach out and tell us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.